All right, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It is Thursday, April the 3rd, 2025. And a few things interesting. You put out a story yesterday about this missing 70-year-old male from Niagara Falls. Well, he's been found.
Oh, good show. Good show.
Right?
I put it out there as kind of like a public service thing.
Yeah,
And
I know. Absolutely. And I got another public service thing we ought to get onto as well. I said to you yesterday I was heading to court, right, in Hamilton. I left Hamilton about 1 o'clock. Now, if you'd have gone to work yesterday in the Niagara region, you'd have gone to work at 9 o'clock. You'd have come home at 5 o'clock, and you might have seen some melting snow on your car. But that underneath that belies a massive storm. I was in Hamilton when I left there about 1 o'clock. There was snow on my car. Cleared the snow off the car, relatively easy. Get onto the QEW. There were 10 accidents at least. Toronto bound on the QEW during my entire trip back. And there were 4 incidents going towards Niagara. At least one of those incidents was, police, fortunately, in one area, were actually helping people out of a live lane. Another one was the car was smashed beyond use. Right. So I don't know what it was with people who went. Did they go out and take their weather? Did they take their wet weather tires off?
Snow tires.
Yeah, did they take their snow tires off?
I don't know. A lot of people may have done that prematurely. I never take mine off until May at least, because I know what April's like.
Yeah,
I've lived and we always think that March means spring. Well, it doesn't mean bad weather, and it doesn't mean the end of winter weather, as we saw yesterday, and we might see again. I've seen snow drifts at the end of April. So
yeah, absolutely. Snow drifts at the end of April. Yes. Yeah, these things happen, right?
Good morning, Green candidate Karen Fraser, and also good morning to Metaphysical Mike.
And to Chris Simone.
Chris Simone, long time no read, no name.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So so that was quite a mess. And the thing is that I was driving at a constant speed up there. I wasn't going fast. I was going faster than some vehicles that were on the road, but there were people going past me, right? And I saw in one incident, a person changed lane at the very last minute to get off. And of course, they spanned the car.
Oh, God.
Right. That was on my side of the Niagara bound side of the QEW. They bailed out about Grimsby time, but they managed to actually recover the car. They didn't hit anything. They just span it around and they managed to turn it back again.
Wow.
But, so all goes to say that what we had yesterday started as snow, became ice pellets, and then became freezing rain.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
This is a troublesome time of the year, of course. And I would caution anybody, anytime there's rain, there could be freezing rain. And I think we're going to get more than our usual complement of rain. Like April showers bring May flowers. No, sometimes April showers bring snow, sleet, and ice.
Yeah. And that was a prime example. So just, when you get these kind of days, just be careful out there. I was meaning to say be careful yesterday morning because it was expected.
Yes, well, it's a little bit foreboding this morning when I was drinking my coffee on my little patio. I'm looking up in the sky, and what do I see? A couple of turkey vultures. They're back in town. They usually make the migration in early to mid-March into the area, and they were circling around, and I'm thinking, I don't look that bad, guys. Get out of here. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All
I
right.
also have an announcement.
Yeah. Go on.
Dun, 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 dun. See that?
Yeah.
I won the best speech last night at our Honeymoon City Toastmaster meeting, and I competed with only one other person, so there was only 2 speeches, but I won the speech contest, and by the time I quit bragging about this later today, there will have been about 20 speakers who I was up against. As the story grows, as you caught a fish this big, it ends up being, too big for you to pick up, and that's going to be the case with my win here. This represents already in my mind a win of over 5 speeches, and it's growing all the time.
In your deluded mind, no doubt. So, what did you speak of? What was your speech about?
It was called. I don't even. I put a title to it in the last minute because I realized I didn't have a title of my speech.
Oh,
I talked about how my first journey changed me. My first trip, I was gone for just short of 3 months backpacking back in early '74, and ran out of money quick in Europe and had to bail to cheaper places like Canary Islands and Morocco, and how that changed me when I came back, and I realized how our trivial obsessions with material things was a real part, a real sort of problem with our own culture. When I'd come from a place where there was little to be had, and the people seemed to be just even happier than they are here, and this incredible obsession with stuff that I hadn't noticed before I went, but when I came back, I noticed that everybody was bumming because they didn't have the best car or the best shoes or the best coat or other things. And when I'm trying to say, yeah, but you have a coat, you have shoes, you have a car.
yeah.
I just came from a place where people made their own clothes, and if they had clothes, they were locally made, and they might not have good shoes, and they definitely didn't have a car and all that. So my speech was.
And they might not have even had a bicycle.
Well, not even bicycles. They didn't even have
exactly.
bicycles.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good speech. That's a good speech, and that was probably why you kind of won the good speech. Won it, right? But that also leads us to our next story.
That is definitely why I beat the other 10 contestants.
From 1 to 10 in 3 short minutes.
Yeah, it's growing fast. It's growing fast. Might be 200 by the time the day's out.
Yeah. So that it was appropriate introduction to the fear of famine looms over Gaza as bakeries ran out of flour amid a month-long Israeli blockade.
Gaza has got off the main headlines, and it's very, very sad. You can only get coverage from that. You can get it on PBS networks sometimes, and places like Al Jazeera, and possibly from good news sources like the Globe and Mail.
But this comes from the CBC.
What?
This comes from the CBC.
Yeah, the CBC is not bad this way either sometimes, but overall, Gaza's been knocked off the top of the headlines, and now is much lower down the list, particularly with the terrifying Trump tariffs, and that's sad because every day there is an outrage going on there. They have stopped the amounts of food going in. The Israelis said, "Oh, there's lots of food. We don't have to send any more food in there." Well, there's lots of food. The bakeries are closing up. They don't have flour to make bread. They have trouble finding gas even to make the bread if they have the flour. Right now, they have neither, and water is a great shortage. They're pushing people around. They've just dropped some. They've just killed a bunch of people in a tent city. 20 people, 23 people. I think a couple of days ago they killed 80. They're just killing everybody all over again. The war is there again, and people are suffering. The Israelis are withholding essential aid to the area, and they're killing aid workers.
Now I'm going to be a bit cynical here. So Trump did what he promised and stopped the Gaza war, didn't he? So there's no Gaza war anymore. You're deluded. It's an optical illusion, man.
Well, Netanyahu claims that he has to do this so that he can enact Trump's plan. So Trump's great, wonderful plan, in order to enact it or to begin it, they're going to have to bomb the crap out of these people again and push them around and make them move from place to place. They are.
The starvation will do that. That's for sure. Because what you're going to do when you've got nothing, and there's a chance here that you're just going to starve people out of existence.
And you're not going to get a guy like Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, or Smotrich saying, "What the hell are we doing here? We're killing all these people. There's got to be a better way." They're not going to do that. Their idea is to bomb the crap out of them and to push them off their land. That is their ultimate purpose, to create a greater Israel. And we are all looking the other way.
Yeah, sad. It's sad but true. The rest of the world is looking the other way, with only the occasional words being spoken.
Netanyahu is a war criminal.
Yeah,
and the ICC is right to go after him. And thank you, South Africa, for bringing it up and starting the process.
Yeah.
Although with the heavy pressure of the United States and the money they wield, the ICC and the kind of sanctions and threats they are already putting on the judges of the ICC, it may not come to fruition, but at least it's out there, and we all know that Netanyahu is a war. We know that. We know the outrages that are happening there, and in the West Bank. They can't be hidden. You can't always pull the wool over our eyes all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah, and we need to do something about it. We need to do something about it fast. We need to get these food going in there.
Well, at least Canada's contributed $100 million to Gaza and the relief agencies there. Hopefully that'll help. But they want to destroy the area, and Trump's people are terrible. I had hoped that they'd stop the war so negotiations would happen, but no, all they did was support backhanded support of backhanded shock to the Gazans, who hoped maybe the war would stop, but it's not going to.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the Sunshine List yesterday, and there were 3 personal support workers that were on the list and being paid more than $100,000 a year. Personal support workers, and that's actually, in one sense, I'm kind of glad, but in another sense, that's a bit shocking because, because PSWs have typically been amongst the worst paid of the public sector workers.
Yes, but the problem here is, and at first I looked at it and I thought, how could PSWs make that kind of money? And I'm very familiar with PSWs because they work in my mother's residence. If there wasn't for PSWs working there, it would be a terrible situation. They have to have them, and there's not enough of them. So when I first saw it, I thought, wait, how could that happen? And then I realized how much overtime is available to them. Now, one of the PSWs made $147,000. He or she must have hustled like crazy and taken as much overtime as possible.
Yeah.
And we know that all that overtime is available if they want it quite often, because there's a shortage of PSWs. So if you want PSWs, you're going to have to pay them overtime to stay longer hours. And if you're willing as a PSW to hustle a lot and to devote a great deal of your time away from your home and family, then then there is a potential of making quite a lot of money. But the base rate's around 57K. So when somebody makes 147 or even 100, there are three there. One made it 147, and the other two made just over 100. You can tell they're hustling like crazy, and now there's a microscope on it. Is it justified? And when anybody looks at it, they were all shocked. Think, how could a PSW make that much? But in further investigation, just saw that they were doing and working lots and lots and lots of overtime.
Yeah.
And the real problem here is that overtime money that they paid out is worth 3 or 4 more PSWs if they could hire them, but there still is a shortage.
Yeah, we got a massive shortage, and that, of course, is this dichotomy. We've got a massive shortage of PSWs across the province, but yet we have some PSWs that are prepared to work massive amounts of overtime, which can't be good for their health.
You can sustain a lot of overtime for just so long. I can tell you that myself, having worked months of overtime, 12-hour shifts sometimes, and that's quite a strain on you.
Yeah, you can do it for a year, but probably not much more.
Yes, and it depends on what kind of work you're doing. If you're in a situation where you don't have to do a whole lot of physical work, depending on what the PSWs were doing, I don't know what. But if you're in a situation where you don't have to do a whole lot of physical work, it's a little easier. But it takes a toll on you. And yeah, definitely these workers probably will pay in other ways. They'll get tired.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And so it's mixed blessing that we're seeing that. It also is an indication that we're not employing enough. We need to get a few more recruits signed up.
Well, that's the hard part, and the demand is only going to go higher. Everybody's getting older. Our demographic, our baby boom demographic, which I'm a part of, is getting older, even though it doesn't look like it, as you can plainly see. I am, the epitome of youth. But others, and by the way, did I tell you?
You didn't tell me what, Dave?
With my youth, I'm still here.
Sorry, go
there
again.
You are. I hope you're there.
Did you tell us what?
Oh, did I can't remember right off the bat, because I'm getting so old. But did I tell everybody that I won the speech contest last night with 20 contestants?
At least 7 times now, Dave. And it wasn't 20, it was 2.
Who told you that?
You did.
Oh, I was misinformed.
I've got it on the tape. I've got it on the tape, Do you want me to rewind it and show it to you?
I want you to erase that part, Anyway, so the PSWs, we're going to need more and more of them as our demographic ages. And they're going to have to come from all over the world, as I witnessed it myself. And when I used to work in the hospital years ago, there were only a few foreign-born PSWs and nurses and so on. But now there's lots and lots, and that's because we need them. And I don't know how we're going to get more of them. We have to pay them well. We have to treat them well, and that way we can invite more people into that. That's a good entry location or entry job for many new immigrants, I think, is PSW work.
Yeah. Okay, so Niagara Falls tourism officials are rolling out the red carpet for Americans today.
As we should. As we should. I think it's very, very important that we make it clear to Americans we've got nothing against Americans, except one. We don't have to roll out the red carpet to.
No, three, at least three.
Oh, well, but one in particular, and I don't know what that would look like. I hope that the Americans will take advantage of the exchange rate, that they're going to get a lot for their buck if they come up here. The marketing, Niagara Falls is marketing for their upcoming tourist season, and 40% of the marketing budget is directed towards the Americans. A really good feature of what happened last year is we had a lot of support from Quebec tourists, and that was very nice. They came down here, and then this is before the tariff.
I was going to say the I hope this is better than last year, because we didn't quite get the numbers of Americans that was projected about this time last year.
Well, let's hope we get them this year.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anybody, if they're talking to Americans, if happen to be, don't get irritated about the tariffs with them. It's nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
We want to make it very clear we got nothing against Americans, just one.
Yeah. Just need to change your leadership. All right. So good morning.
We can invite Donald up here and take him right to the edge of the falls to show him what was going on.
Honestly,
we can push him in.
Honestly, we'd welcome him on the show any day of the week, right?
Oh yeah. The phone's going to ring off the hook. He's going to want an interview for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just beyond that one, Dave. Okay.
Yeah.
As you hang out at the office today, just make sure that you're listening out for that call. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'll check every once in a while. Hey, where's Big D? He's supposed to be here. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So Niagara Falls should be attracting Canadians, telling the Canadians that are boycotting the USA to travel to Canada.
Yeah, they are, and there's a number of reasons there, and Diodati has pointed out that it is probably as much to do with the low dollar as it has to do with political stuff. I would disagree there. I know Canadians that are in Florida, and they don't like what's going on one bit. We find that a lot of Canadians are selling their places and leaving there. That's partly due to the financial reasons, but it's also what's really pushed them over the brink is the political problems that are happening. That there's going to be staycations going on in Canada, hopefully this summer, which was another boom for our Niagara Tours business, where less money goes to the south and stay south of the border and stays here. It's a very sad state of affairs, basically, because there are tourist industries down there in the United States and various places that depend on Canadians coming. And because they're not coming, it's hurting them. And I hate to see ordinary, everyday businesses and people who are working in the tourist industry being hurt by all this. But as I said before, it is probably a lot to do with the low Canadian dollar, but also the insults we've had to be taking from DT there. when he's telling us we're the 51st state and we abuse them and all this other stuff.
It doesn't matter. They can come here. We'll be the 51st state. No problem. Bring the US dollar here.
Yeah, but also to remember that if you're angry at the Americans, that's not a good thing. And do remember that only half the people in the United States voted for Trump. Half. So when you're looking at
half the voters, remember, a lot of people don't vote.
Yeah, half of the voters, only half of the voters voted for Trump. He just happened to win in those particular areas that are very important. They got him the electoral college.
Yeah.
But remember that only half of all Americans voted for Trump, who did vote. So the country is split. And so there are 175 million people who didn't vote for Trump, and they can come here anytime they want.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Anything else on that? Not got any comments on that one.
No, I just hope that we do have a very prosperous tour season this year.
Yeah, no, I think we didn't have as it wasn't going. I quit watching Tariffs, says Betty.
Yeah, I don't blame her, because they go, here's a tariff, there's a tariff, there's not a tariff, here's another tariff, some tariffs here, some tariffs there, some tariffs pending. Yeah, it's a very confusing thing right now. And it's very hard to wrap your head around how these tariffs are going to work right now.
And there's what Mike says.
What she says, maybe they will not elect a moron next time. Well, maybe not elect a megalomaniac, but we don't know what's happened. Apparently, Trump rolled out these new tariffs, and I don't want to bother Betty with more tariff news, but I guess Trump rolled them out after the stock market closed because he was worried about how the stock market would react, and he didn't want to field any questions about that. So he waited until after trading, and then he announced the tariffs. Since then, futures and stuff have gone south pretty fast, and it looks like today, early on, that the stock markets will suffer because there still isn't a whole lot of clarity when it comes to these tariffs. It's across the board tariff, and what is Trump really wanting to do? The tariffs that he's imposed, the fentanyl tariffs that he's imposed due to security reasons against Canada, is unfounded. It's not a serious problem at all here. The migration coming back and forth is not an issue here. And as Pierre Poilievre said, well, we'll do our part, but we want you to do your part by stopping illegal guns coming into this country. They're pouring over the border, and there is no effort by the U.S. to stop that. So maybe we can impress upon them, we'll do what we can about migrants and fentanyl, but how about you do your part and stop the guns that are coming here and supplying criminals?
Yeah. So Trump also, the other thing is that Trump also unveiled his sweeping reciprocal tariffs, but in that the GNC, our GNCC, Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce, says that whilst he put these sweeping tariffs out, Canada was not mentioned in them.
No, because there's already that, like I said, the fentanyl tariffs are already in place. The reaction to those fentanyl tariffs, our tariffs against the United States, are still in place. Those early ones, the 30, I think about 30 to 60 billion. I don't know. I'm always confused to how much we are actually counter tariffing. Doug Ford has said that he's cautiously optimistic, but when asked the questions, all he can say is, I don't know, because nothing is written in stone yet. and how it will affect the auto industry, that's still up for grabs. Because the anything compliant with the USMCA agreement, that our free trade agreement with the United States, is supposed to be exempt from this at this particular time. However, he has pointed out that he wants cars made in the United States. However, what we have fashioned over the years, the last 30 years, was pretty much a single economic unit, which is North America.
Yeah.
Mexico, the United States, and Canada are in many ways a single economic unit, reliant on one another for prosperity.
Yeah.
And
And there
you
are
don't
obviously
interfere with that
differences
too
between,
much. Because, okay, go ahead.
yeah, there are obviously differences between between each of the nations, but yes, generally speaking, they're largely a single economic unit.
Yeah, I saw how a Ford F-150 was broken down and where the parts come. They come from all over the world, Romania, Korea. And when you take apart a transmission, the rings and the seals and the gears, they all come from different places. Although Ford says it sources most of its materials, 80%, in the United States, there are all these other little components that cannot be easily replaced at any time. And that is very, very troubling. Now, the United States, Trump wants cars made in the United States completely for security reasons, but that's impractical. Uh, if you want to shut out, uh, if you want to shut out other countries, yeah, but don't shut out Canada and Mexico, because we're all in this together anyway. We have common, we have the same security threats, we have the same trade issues outside of North America, all those kind of things. And Betty says, didn't research it as yet, but word is Canada has a, a lab for the drugs. Yes, Canada has a few labs for the drugs, but so does the United States have the labs,
Yeah.
and so does Mexico.
Yeah,
Those
so this is
fall
the
in.
agreement. I was just showing here. This is the agreement that Trump was flashing yesterday.
Yeah, and on Liberation Day, which
Yeah.
Doug Ford calls Termination Day, because he feels there's going to be jobs lost.
Yeah.
Right now, we still are not in good place, but the the tariffs are so sweeping that there wasn't a whole lot of thought put to them. One of the sort of left of sort of the legacy media uh, people were saying that Trump put tariffs on places like the Falkland Islands and remote little islands uh, in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean that have almost no people on them and have no trade at all. In fact, he's put a tariff on an island uh, uh, off the coast of Antarctica that has no people in it at all. He's put a tariff on a little island in the high in the Arctic Ocean there that has no people in it at all. And why does a remote island
Need a tariff. Yeah. Dave?
that has no, here I am back again. So like the place like the Falkland Islands, who has very few people on it.
Yeah, there's about 30,000 people on the Falkland Islands.
Yeah, and they're getting a tariff of 41%.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they sell to the United States?
There's probably more that arrives from the US to the Falkland Islands than goes the other way.
Yeah, very possibly. Or there might be one thing they make down there that the US can't make and it imports it. So they're going to put a 41% tariff on it. A lot of these don't make sense. They haven't been thought through
Yeah.
thoroughly. So we'll
Yeah.
see what the ramifications of this is. And if you know, if like take away our what Trump, just say Trump is just some ordinary guy, president trying to increase the prosperity of the United States. The way he's doing it now is very, very fast. Tariffs originally were planned. So I once read that around 2.5% across the board, which would increase the government's revenue. And remember, all these tariffs, they still, like I was watching Fox, and they were talking to an expert, and he was saying they still don't have it right. He said, well, it's going to really increase the revenue of the United States because we're charging these countries a tariff. No, they're not charging the countries a tariff. They're charging their own citizens the tariff.
Yeah.
Their own manufacturers pay the tariff.
And that's the point, is that the item comes into the US at $100 for the item, whatever it is, and you're charging, and you know, the US puts a 25% tariff on it. So now it's available to sale from from that point on as $125, whereas last year you got it for $100. You know, Dave?
Yeah, I'm still here. It's kind of fading in and out, but it's not going away like it did yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but we seem to be back. We seem to be back where we were when we were using Zoom.
Oh well. So, well, let Steamer get its act together here, or I'm going to take that little duck and throw him out to the turkey buzzards that are out there.
I think we may have to. You know, hey, StreamYard, the duck's in trouble. Quack, quack. Right. Okay. Yeah. So the point being is that I don't know. So he's saying foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. You know, I don't think that's the truth.
It was American manufacturers who took it away.
Yeah.
No one came and got it and took it away. It was the investors took it away. All that stuff that went to China, it was investors that closed the factories in the United States and set them up in China or other places. So nobody came pilfering at all.
Yeah.
That's not the way it was. It was American investors or Western investors and factory owners and all that went there. And they went there for a reason, because they got cheaper stuff. And the reason why the Chinese own the rare earth metals market is not because they produce the rare earths so much. It is that they have the ability to refine them, and jumped on that particular part of it and refine the rare
earth metals. Yeah. Dave, done it again.
metals.
Yeah.
Here we are back again.
Yeah. The other thing is about this, it's foreign cheaters. It isn't foreign cheaters. If you're going to call these people cheaters, and I don't use the term, I wouldn't use the term. It was American manufacturers that decided to change course back in the 80s and 90s and stop producing in America. And hey, Europe went through the same thing. Yeah, Europe went through the same thing. Canada went through the same thing. Many other parts of the world went through the same thing. That is, and the Chinese just welcomed it with open arms, because the thing is, the Chinese could underproduce, could undercharge. They could make those products way cheaper than the Americans could, even if they were not underpaying their staff.
And if you talk to I've seen interviews with American business people, small businesses, stuff like that have things produced in China. They design them in the United States. They send them over to China to make them. And they swear that the Chinese are excellent to work with. So they have an excellent business acumen. You go over there, you want this certain thing made, and
you
they'll
want to
make it for you, and they'll produce it quickly, and they'll give it to you. They're very, very efficient.
Yeah, you want 100,000 dresses on April the 1st because that's when the new season comes out in the stores. The 100,000 dresses are available on April the 1st. You don't get any of these bullshit excuses that you get or unions going on strike.
Well, what you'll do is you'll get a whole lot of those dresses that you want. You'll get them a week ahead of time. If you want them for April 1st, they'll give you them ahead of time. But of course, and you said no BS like workers going on strike. But that's how we made our prosperity, is with unions. If not for unions, we didn't have any prosperity.
I wasn't putting down unions. I'm just saying that there was no kind of we'll give you your April 1st clothing line on September 1st. That was the trouble with what was going on in America, is that Americans kind of treated deadlines a bit blasé, whereas Chinese Chinese guarantee the deadline. They'll fire people if they're not produced by deadline.
Well, the bad part of it, of course, is they don't get pay raises.
Yeah,
and the government sticks their nose in and keeps their value of the currency low. So those are the things you have to fight, and not go look for a low hanging fruit in the countries that support you, like Mexico and Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So, this whole question about foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, I think that's more, it's good, it's kind of a thing that fits in with his whole ethos of make America great again. But in fact, actually, the truth of the matter is that American industry gave those jobs away.
I heard a quote today, and it was by Henry Kissinger, and he says, "We don't have friends. Countries don't have friends. They have interests, and they will pursue their interests, whether it's defense or economics or anything else, for their own benefit."
And it's the same with corporations. They don't have friends. They have interests. Those interests are,
Precisely.
Yeah. And that's part of the question here, is if you wanted jobs in America, you needed to have stopped the outsourcing of that stuff in the 80s.
And the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who has kept his head very low this last week or so. Before that, he was a bombast on every kind of TV show that would take him. When Trump started doing the auto tariffs and stuff like that, all of a sudden Lutnick just kind of disappeared, because he had guaranteed Doug Ford and others that there would be no surprises, and a big surprise came. So he couldn't guarantee what he said. So he's kept his head low. And yesterday he's come out and said, "Oh, the USMCA did not do what it was intended to do." So the greatest trade package of all time, the greatest one in history, is seriously flawed now, he says. Yeah. So now, he didn't say that we're seriously flawed. It just said it didn't do what it was intended to do. And these trade things are very, very difficult, and it could be disastrous, because the farmers in the United States have not recovered from the last time Trump put on tariffs to China. China sourced its agricultural goods from other places, which meant that the Trump administration had to subsidize American farmers. And it looks like that's going to happen again. That's not good. You want to create a market for your farmers, not have to subsidize them.
Yeah. And interesting yesterday is that Ludnick's role yesterday was purely to hold up a chart showing the percentages to which they will tariff those individual nations.
I think a lot of Trump's staff is beginning to panic a bit, just like in his first administration. Now he fired a lot of people because a lot of people were stood up to him, and so he dumped them. Um, so they. I have a feeling that they're kind of panicking because they don't think they have the control over him that they thought they did. So they're. I don't know how they're going to do this, but we'll see what happens as it goes on. We can
Yeah.
understand why the United States wants security guarantees on things like steel and aluminum and an auto industry and an industry that can be converted to a war industry very quickly. And if you can't do that if you don't have the manufacturing when you've already sent it offshore, you've got
Yeah.
to bring it back. So you can see some aspects of this being important. But to say that
Well,
Canada and Mexico are a threat, uh, if they make the parts in Canada or Mexico, that's a threat because they're not making it. It's not true because we're all the same economic unit in North America, and who are we going to sell it to anyway?
yeah. Usually ourselves.
Yeah, if you need aluminum for your or nickel for your defense industry, who says we were not going to sell it to you? No, we're part of NAFTA, which we're tied in there. Even if they go to a war, we
Well,
don't agree with.
yeah, there's some interesting things on this tariff board that Lutnick was holding up.
We're
For
not going to
example,
stop.
sorry?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. So there were some interesting things on this tariff board that Lutnick was holding up. For example, UK is static at 10%. They were already there. They haven't changed the position. But Bangladesh, for example, was gone from 37% tariffs up to 74%.
Now, one of the reasons why countries were light on a place like Bangladesh and allowed them to have their tariffs, it's the same reason why the United States put.
Because it's encouraging trade. Ah, you've done it again.
Tariffs
Sorry, Dave.
back. Do you really want to pick on a poor country like Bangladesh, who could really use your help, and they put on tariffs to preserve whatever they have? Let's say they're making rice or they're growing rice, and they put a tariff on imported rice. That is to save their own farmers. We saw what happened in Haiti when all kinds of American rice or and other staples from other countries came in dirt cheap. It completely ruined the domestic rice farmers and other
Yeah,
farmers.
yeah,
Um, so you could see that if you want, and what it did was put those farmers on unemployment. So you could see the
oh,
reason
yeah,
why some countries may have a tariff. It'd be wise for Haiti to have a tariff on imported rice so that it could re-stimulate its own farmers, which it had plenty of before they became a welfare state. We, you know, uh, we erroneously dumped all kinds of cheap stuff into Haiti to help them, but what we really did was ruin their local economy. So we didn't do it well. And do
yeah,
you really want to do something like that to a place like Bangladesh that is just
yeah,
full of poor people? Why would
yeah,
you want to encumber Bangladesh?
yeah, exactly. Oh, so for example, for Canada, Chile, UK, and a few other countries, there's probably nothing changed.
No, the across the board 10% tariff is what the Americans are going to pay. So this is supposed to offset the tax cuts that Trump wants. So what he's going to do is he's going to basically, with the tariffs, charge the American people more money for the goods that they have, and then supposedly then cut their taxes to balance that. That's not the system that should be happening, according to, now I can't say this because I'm no economist, but one of the ideas was to charge across the board tariff of about 2.5%, and to balance that with taxes and to increase the revenue of the United States with this 2.5% tariffs, at the same time maintaining current taxes until you can begin to balance your books. Also, that would help to stimulate some industries coming back into the United States. But we will see what happens. A lot of people think this is just a negotiation ploy or the beginning of negotiations. Right now, it's just added more confusion to the marketplace.
Yeah. And it hasn't helped the stock market at all, I don't think.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
And remember, the whole globalization thing was perpetuated by the West, particularly the cure competition and cheaper and better parts from wherever they came around the world to make those products the best and cheapest for the American public. Now there's a reversal of that idea.
Yeah. Okay. So another impact here is both American and Canadian mayors have been speaking out about the economic impact of a cross-border tariffs on Canadian imports.
This is the Great Lakes mayors.
The Great Lakes mayors.
Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence River mayors.
Sorry?
The Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River.
Yeah, mayors. Yeah. And they don't like it. They don't consider it a good idea.
No, because we have a very beneficial cross-border trade, particularly with our closest partners. And most of the Canadian population lives in and around the Great Lakes, and huge amounts of the American population does too. And that particular economic unit, the St. Lawrence Seaway, basically, and the Great Lakes, makes up $8 trillion trade network, which, to my surprise, was the third largest in the world. So if you draw a line around the Great Lake, you draw a circle around the Great Lakes and the states and provinces and into Quebec, if you take that as a trade area, which they do consider it, and it's worth $8 trillion. And of course, the local mayors and don't want that messed with. They've got a good thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, we've seen our own mayor speak out about it as well. I'm not saying he wasn't highly effective, not as some of these mayors have been. For example, this was a meeting that took place yesterday in Chicago, Illinois.
Yes. So this is another reaction to all of this, and they're sort of petitioning as hard as they can. Don't do this, DT, because we're going to wreck us here. We need some kind of carve out. But anyway, what it is for now, and we will see what kind of reaction.
And when you consider that, vast majority, for example, a large chunk of the U.S. Canadian trade comes from those Great Lakes cities across that border the Great Lakes here in Ontario, as well as in the U.S. As well as the St. Lawrence. We here in Ontario think more of the Great Lakes than we do the St. Lawrence, but the St. Lawrence Seaway is as important to Quebec and the eastern provinces as the Great Lakes is to Ontario.
Well, Quebec has a good trading relationships with New England.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and they do a lot of cross-border stuff. It goes back and forth a lot of times, and that improves the trade of those areas. Um, I don't. I have a huge reservations about how this will work out. I think if wisdom comes to the White House, it will show that the North America Economic Unit is a very beneficial thing, and it is makes the United States, Canada, and Mexico more secure in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have to annex a country to get its minerals and stuff like that. You trade with them, and
Well, those minerals have been. Yeah, those minerals are part of the trade.
Yeah.
And you don't tariff minerals is basically what you would say. What I would say.
And if you say, well, we got to capture Ontario because it produces nickel, half of our nickel. Well, we know you could come up here and get it anytime you want. So why do you want to annex our country? If we refuse to give it to you, you just come up and get it. So who else are we going to sell it to? We're going to sell it to you as much as you want, anytime you want.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of other trade going on as well.
Yeah, it's we'll see what comes out of this, how it shakes down.
Yeah.
The advantages I see right now is that this has really woken up Canada for sure. We have over $200 billion of trade that we could have had interprovincially that we have never exploited. And our politicians have sat on their heels about this for many, many years, dozens of years. That's got us waking up.
But too long, yeah.
So that woke us up. The border thing woke us up. We are investing in our own military finally. That woke us up too. So there are a silver lining to all of this. We have a better, more secure border now. We're more focused on deadly drugs coming in and out of the country. We're arms and things like that. We are now planning to have more pipelines and more mines opening up and all that kind of thing, and to exploit our resources quicker and faster. All of that under the last 10 years especially has been tamped down by the Liberal government, which was more sort of environmentally focused, and it's a bad thing to open a mine, and it's a bad thing to make a pipeline. And that's why I think probably Poilievre might do better in this election coming up, because he points that out. And he will say, look, they stifled production of Canada for 10 years. Do you think they're going to not stifle it again? We'll see about that. We'll see if the Canadian electorate buys that or not.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Well, we see. Yeah. We haven't talked about the Canadian election at all today.
No, and the NDP, if they want to do anything and have a potential of being the controlling interest, the balance of power, they better get their stuff going, because they've got nothing.
Yeah,
they've got nothing at all.
And well, and right now, I think Jagmeet Singh is in danger of losing his seat.
Chris Simone says, "Thanks for the show." Oh yeah, Chris, did I tell you that I won the speech contest last night? There was 200 contestants.
two contestants.
Oh well, okay. A bit of hyperbole there. Anyway, so thanks, Chris, for sitting in, and the angst of this tariff thing will continue on, but I'm very pleased that we are having this open arms attitude to our American cousins. Come on up here. We don't blame you for the trade imbalances and the trade issues and all. We just want you to come up here and have a good time and spend all your loot.
Yeah, leave it here.
Yankee Green.
Just come across the border and just deposit your loot on the Canadian side. All right.
We're not going to tariff the Yankee greenback. No, no, no. Anyway, where are we? We're at 8:00 now.
We're at 8:00, and that's kind of the end of where we've gotten to for today. Anyway.
Okay, everyone. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, and don't forget Gaza.